How much do you know about the neuroscience of AV and learning? Of course, since I got my postdoctorate in the science of SWAV, I probably know more than you do, but I've actually found someone here that knows more than I, Mrs. Katie Quigley. I bow to your omnipotent presence, madam. So I understand today you're going to tell us about how to see the sounds and hear the colors, right?
No, not really.
It's neuroscience of AV. I read about color and screen size and cognitive theory of multimedia learning. Whoa.
Actually, we are going to talk about CTML. It's about how the brain takes in information, how we learn, and so you can really apply it to your meetings to have a more effective meeting. You know, when the synapses fire together, they wire together.
I think my head just exploded.
I am joined by an absolute blue ribbon panel on this subject, so I want to introduce them first. Greg Van Dyke, Senior Vice President, PSAV. Andrea, you are President of Brain Strength Systems, Andrea Sullivan. And of course, Katie Quigley, Microsoft Worldwide Senior Director with Microsoft Corporation. We have got a fascinating subject, audiovisual technology and adult learning in meetings, which is a lot of words to say that there's a science going on here, Greg, from what I can tell.
Yeah.
Can you kind of get us started and talk a little bit about it?
Yeah, the reason this whole topic got started is we have all these conversations with planners, and they always feel like, hey, you always come to us with these cool technologies, you want us to spend money, but how do I prove to my executive director or to my board that this investment has a real return? Does it even have a real return? So we thought, well, we truly believe that it does impact overall communication, so we decided to get with Andrea Sullivan and have a conversation about, can you help us prove the science? And like, Katie, can you help us show about, does it actually work in practice? And so they have a lot of insight. Maybe Andrea, can you tell us a little bit about the actual science behind audiovisual learning?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it really has started in the past about 10 years with the brain imaging techniques that the neuroscientists have been able to look into the brain, see what's happening. So we're understanding a lot more about how the senses work, how the information comes in to our brains, into our bodies, goes into working memory, goes into long-term memory. So we have much more of an understanding now of how it actually works in our minds, in our brains. And it's very connected with the sensory input that you receive, which is why it's so important that the audio, that the visual, is all aligned and targeted to make the most of what it is that we actually want the outcome to be.
Do these principles, Andrea, because I just want to jump in and Katie, ask you a question, but these principles apply not just then, I assume, to general sessions or big meetings. Is it also smaller meetings? I mean, day-to-day meetings?
Everything is really targeted is the word that I like to use because we're going to have a different response. For example, if we're in a room with, bright red lights and lively music, I mean, the whole physiological response to that is going to be very different from if we're in a room that has subdued lighting and an elegant, classical piece in the background. Our bodies respond, our brains respond, we experience it differently.
And how do you migrate that into your organization?
Sure. We, for every event that we do a broad range of events. We do, we look at the business objectives first and determine what is it that we're trying to accomplish from this event or from this meeting, because it does range anywhere from 50 people all the way up to 16,000. And so from there, we then start to design that experience, and it truly needs to be an immersive experience. From the time that the meeting starts to the time that it ends, the environment makes a difference in how people interact, talk to each other, and walk away with the messaging that we want them to walk away with.
So, and are you able to get because you're herding cats all the time with
right.
worldwide meetings going on that you have to keep an eye. Do they understand the science of it, or is there a sensitivity to that?
There's absolutely a sensitivity. We look at cultural environment because we do meetings around the world, and I think that makes a big difference about how people communicate and interact, and so we make sure that we're very particular and sensitive to the culture that we're doing an event in. And then we also want to ensure that we create an opportunity for people to meet face-to-face and have those conversations, because being a global company, we spend a lot of time on the phone,
right.
So we really need to take advantage of the time we're together. Steve Ballmer loves to do an entrance song song every year at our global sales meeting. And to him, that song is more important actually than the words he says, because that song relays a message that he's trying to convey for that year. So he spends hours with our sound person trying to decide what song he's going to use that for that year. And that's what you hear people talk about at that reception the night following is, oh, the song that Steve used this year. And then it sticks with you a lot longer.
And there you go back to your sound and music and all these other elements working together.
But there's a challenge for the average person when you think about your meeting. How many times you said, well, hey, just throw on some background music? Or you got the CEO of one of the biggest companies in the world going, what's the impact I want to make? And I want to make sure it all fits together. And that's the joy of this stuff. It all does layer if you plan. And it really can help you reinforce the overall message.
And that's the point you're trying to make.
Yeah.
It isn't just a song. It has meaning. It has
does.
message.
Mm-hmm, absolutely.
And we've forgotten somebody in this group, which is speakers. I mean,
Right.
Are they up? Are we helping them be better at what? Because tell Steve Ballmer, I'm sorry, can't say that because the science. I mean, you got to deal with what you got to deal with. But
right, we've brought in a company that comes from theater. And so they're doing the speaker training as opposed to someone who has a background as a speaker. So it's a production really then. And we're doing it for anyone that may be doing a session for 20 people all the way up to our executives.
Yeah, it's tough in an organization of senior people who say, I have my style, I'm sorry. And
some things you can't change.
Yeah. But you mentioned theater, and isn't this a lot of these principles in Broadway? I mean,
I don't know about Broadway. I do know the speakers are embracing the science just like everybody else is. I mean, because it's not just about how we deliver; it's also about learning the collaborative designs and all the different interactive learning designs, so that people are engaged. Because of course, doing is one of the ways that we learn. Much more than being receptive only. So I'm sure that you guys know that as well.
Yeah, nobody wants to be boring. I'm sorry.
I was just saying, we're going to have a session here at Convening Leaders where we're going to spend a lot of detail about some of the rules for audiovisual learning. And one of the ahas is we're not going to sit up there and just present to you for 60 minutes. We're going to stop with bite-sized chunks and reinforce that learning, have an audience engagement opportunity to reinforce the learning. So again, we're trying to show in practice how you apply some of these principles as a lesson for the planners can take home so they can have another arrow in their quiver to be more effective when they're organizing their own meetings.
I guess I would like to say also, and addressing that last question, the traditional fields of instructional design, learning design is what we look to. And I think that what's happening now is that is beginning to expand, to understand that AV to me is not a logistic to be handled. AV is part of the learning strategy. And I think that's what we're talking about. And there's more and more science now that we can really, intelligently go about how do we design the AV to be part of the learning strategy and design.
Because it sets up a whole chain of events all the way down to measurement of success, because I'm assuming then you now have to change whatever it is you use to measure how successful was the meeting.
Right. And we ask questions now when we're measuring our event, not did you like the food, how was the venue? Because those really at the end of the day, they shouldn't be thinking about that. What we want them to do is walk away with the message we're trying to convey. So we ask more questions of, did you shift your perception about X, Y, and Z? Or, how is it that you now think of this? And so we want to see that our overall planning and execution of designing that experience really did have an impact.
In fact, Katie, do you actually build that into your site selection? These sort of principles and theories and questions help you decide where you're going to hold a meeting?
We do, absolutely. You look at a venue, you look at a city and the different facilities that they have, and you have to make sure that it will fit the experience that you have in mind that you want to create. Because if it doesn't, it's going to be so hard to accomplish your objectives.
I mean, it's so interesting to have you say that, because now we're talking about attitude shift and different behaviors, which was the point of the meeting in the first place.
Right.
To get people to do something that you want them to do, or think or know something.
Right.
And it has to be all the way down to testing or tracking, I guess. Yeah. Where do you all think this is heading? I mean, where?
I think it's more thinking about what you're trying to achieve as opposed to the tactical logistics of it. It's getting down to what are really the true reason that you're holding that event. Whether it's an association or a corporation, there's a reason to have that. Whether it's loyalty to the association, education, networking, and I think that's what needs to be thought of first. And then you go in, and then you think about the people that are going and who they are, and you have to match those together, as opposed to the, how many bagels am I going to order, to feed 2,000 people.
And the
Yeah.
the linens and whatever.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Andrea, I mean, more science, more change, more.
I feel the same way. Yeah, I think the science is. I mean, I'm very interested in the science. I love it, and I think it's contributing. We all want more effective meetings. We all want our meetings to be productive, efficient. I mean, fun, and the science helps because it explains how it is that we're experiencing.
Is it fair to say that you'll take the science beyond? I mean, obviously we're here with a shameless plug, think about audiovisual services, but you apply the same sciences beyond maybe the food, I believe, but some other
Absolutely.
elements to help people engage the brain during a meeting.
I do a lot of work on the food. Yeah, the food is really important
It does,
because it can get people, off right away from eating sugar and white flour and so the food is important. Everything. The brain registers everything. I'm always saying this. The brain is everything. So we need to take care of it.
Yeah.
So that's why I look at these things. That the goal would be to hopefully, in the myriad of activity you've got to get done in a short period of time, is to stop thinking about everything, if you will, as a tick box, something you have to achieve, and an opportunity to think about how do you get that, what is your objective, and how can you use all these different tools to help you achieve that, engage the senses to achieve that communication objective. And if you spend some time doing that, you can really have some fun and be much more effective.
Are universities or PCMA, are the organizations that help planners become better at their jobs actively taking this on, this whole subject of neuroscience?
I know PCMA is. I'm so impressed by the work that they do, and they're innovative. They're trying new things, and their whole thing is that we're going to try it for you to learn from. If it doesn't work, then we've helped you.
Right.
We've helped to educate you. So then they've achieved their objectives.
And are you finding
It has come a long way. I started doing what I do 12 years ago, and people were like, "Brain, what?" No, go to colleges. What does that have to do with meetings? And now the whole industry is embracing it. So we've come a long way.
colleges too? I mean, are there?
The colleges are K to 12 is a whole brain-based learning field, which I learn a lot from.
Right.
They're bringing it into the schools now tremendously in the learning processes.
And we're excited because we've done this one white paper, but we've been able to engage other thought leaders from PCMA, the faculty, to see the faculty conclave over at IMAX, and get some people engaged with how do we look at other research projects and understand, again, the magic comes when you can apply all these things in a meeting to help people achieve their objectives. So if we have an attendee walk away who's more engaged, more educated, goes up and changes. That's why you're having this meeting. If we get someone to change their behavior, that's why we're all in this business. That's the joy of doing all this stuff. So
I'm a planner. I don't have a lot of staff. I don't have a lot of budget, or in your case, I got a worldwide operation to work over. What advice would you give me? How do I stay up to date? What should I do? Any thoughts on?
I think there's a few things. There's so much to read. The white paper alone is a great place to start, and it's also learning from your peers and having conversations with them about things that they do, the best practices, things that they've found are effective. I think it's really, you could sit in a room by yourself and it costs nothing and think about what am I trying to achieve, and write down your objectives and
Just
write
think
down
differently.
characteristics of your attendees, and then take it from there, and then start to talk to other people about it.
Andrea?
Keep up with professional development, definitely, and then also planners can look at their own experience inside their own bodies. I mean, when I'm going to do a presentation, I sit and put myself in the attendee's perspective and how would I feel, and then I can see, oh, wait a minute, there's way too information in this part. I've got to change this. So they can look and see how would I feel sitting in this room experiencing those, colors and that sound, and does it need it? So use yourself.
Great. Greg,
And
any ideas?
PCMA has some great educational content, but we actually, Katie mentioned our white paper. This is our white paper that we have, and it's available for all the planners at psav.com/sensational science. That's a way for you to get a white paper which it combines a lot of detail on the science as well as some checklists for things you can go do. You can work with your own technology providers, you can work with us, but I think if you just spend some time looking and thinking about this, as these are incredible tools that you can apply to help you achieve your communication objectives by engaging the senses to help you achieve your meeting design, I think you'd have a great experience.
Perfect. Thank you, Greg. Thank you, Andrea. Thank you, Katie. Always
Thank
a
you
pleasure.
very much.
Appreciate your time.
Absolutely.
We've been fortunate to have Greg Van Dyke, Senior Vice President, PSAV, Andrea Sullivan, President, Brain Strength Systems, and Katie Quigley, Senior Director, Microsoft Corporation, speaking about audiovisual technology and adult learning in meetings.